So I think we would like to jump to, questions from you all and from online, but I did have, one thing that maybe folks here could talk about one at a time would be that, seems to me, you from a day-to-day experience that architecture takes so long, right? And it's always client steered. But I think maybe that's just my own personal reaction. And actually, when you think about it, when it only takes a couple years to get like a building to come into fruition, that's actually like a really fast, rapid prototyping process. When it comes to, I think other folks in the audience probably take a lot more time to get their products to market. So I wonder what you all think about leveraging architecture as a way to prototype things and to get things into the built environment fairly quickly, just by installations within the building, or does anyone have any experience with that and want to talk to that?
Maybe I can start.
Yeah.
Is the mic working? Okay,
Yeah.
good. So because I'm dealing with the stuff that building owners and architects do not want to deal with, water and the high maintenance. So I couldn't find like a person who want to adopt my technology as the first adopter. So what I did is that I started with institutions because they love to bear the risk, explore the risk, de-risking the technology. So the scrub architecture, that is a base test bed. And the other place that I am also working with is someone who went through similar journey as me. So I have also university spin-off CEO who knows what I am struggling with. So those are folks also behind me to accommodate my technology to test, the proof of concept. So I think I'm nesting my technology on something already exists, and then that has been working fine at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that it's difficult to find a client that aligns their goals and visions with ours. And I think we have to experiment as designers and architects, and we have to find ways to do it affordably in order to prove that it works. If we have the proof and the data, then it's easier to sell someone in the future with it. With the project that I shared, the client wasn't into sustainability at all, but now we use that for the same client to push them in other realms, because we can actually look at the post-occupant studies and prove that we are reducing the cost of maintenance by 40% on that building, the life cycle cost, and now they're using it as their gold star for the county that it was for, and they want all their buildings to do it. So we have to find ways to intertwine it, not necessarily jump from 0 to 100, but if we can somehow incorporate a small wall system of yours on one project and prove that it works and how it works, it'll be easier to sell to future clients.
Yeah, I think yours is a good example. It's a 5-story prototype, right?
Yeah.
Of this concept, and we'll have the data on that soon, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Under budget.
It came in under budget, which is
That's the key.
yes.
Yeah.
And I think that the client themselves had no clue what we were doing. A lot of times clients come to us as architects to design space, and it needs to function. That's our number one goal, is function for them. It's got to function. But the form part, they don't necessarily understand unless they look at an architect's style and they say, oh, that's the style of architecture I want. With my firm in particular, we don't have a style. And so our style is whatever the site tells it to be, or whatever the function tells it to be. So we need to just develop that and make sure that the forms, if we can hide some of these techniques in there and still come in on budget, under budget, it becomes our playground. Hopefully they all work, and I won't tell them if it doesn't.
So we learned. Yeah, we're looking for up there. Andrew?
So, Andrew Trunick, great set of presentations, great set of talks, terrific. But I kind of want to, I guess, focus this on either Maggie or Hans, and because you guys are, and the focus on this is architect. And, you guys both talked about cement and so forth. And you mentioned that, termite mounds and so forth, 300-400 years, no problem. And yet modern, we build a lot of our buildings now today with modern cement that has a lifetime of, 50 to about a maximum of 100 years. And then the buildings basically got to come down. But yet we have, things that were built from the Mayan civilizations that are now, several thousand years old and still structurally strong. Did they take inspiration from biomimicry? Maybe they didn't call it that, but, how do we relate, what the termites are doing and what the Mayans did versus, the crappy kind of stuff that we're using today?
We concerts that just get stronger with it. We cracks, it heals. I don't know if they knew they were doing that or not. I don't know the history on how much experimentation they did and how they ended up with something that we can go back and see, 2,000 years later. So I don't know. See,
Yeah, I don't know either. But what I would say is I was talking to someone yesterday about this, that typical buildings that I design are for 40 to 50 years. And to me, that's horrible. Why are we not designing a building that has a longevity of thousands of years? If we look at the carbon footprint that it takes to build a current building, to take it apart and, more carbon footprint to build it again, we should be building structures that are timeless. It's our due diligence as architects to do a better job of that. We need to sell and educate our clients on that. And that's one of the hardest things because there's always a budget. And that budget is very limited typically. And with the cost of construction and materials these days, we've seen it double in the past 2 years. So I think that's something that we probably strive for, is to create timeless structures, something that'll last thousands of years. I don't know if early civilizations looked towards biomimicry for their structures, but I'm guessing they did. That was probably their inspiration for design, tens of thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago.
Oh, okay.
There's someone here that says,
This is for Hans and Ki-Young. Hans, with the shade fins, you said that your client didn't have the buy-in, but there were like multiple functional uses for those fins. But they're also really beautiful. Did you sell your client on the beauty of them or the functionality of them?
The function. So, like I was saying earlier, in order to hide the sustainable ideas and concepts from the client, because they're not into it, we created the building as is, and during design development, we had to value engineer some money out of the project, and so we took some things off, and they wanted the fins to come off. I was going to save around $280,000. So the moment we did that, I went back to my high-performance design team and had them look at the energy models if we remove them, and it actually, the mechanical equipment doubled, and the mechanical room size doubled, which meant the whole building grew, which meant the skin of the building grew. And so as I started to look at that with my team, I could go back to them and say, it might save you $280,000 here, but it's going to cost you $500,000 here today, plus whatever additive to it. So I'm trying to be sneaky with how I incorporate these into these projects. But it'd be great to align a client with my goals as well. It's much easier.
And Kia, with your algae, you find a way to make it also look beautiful in a way. Is that intentional?
Yes, because we have all negative impression about the microalgae, right? So the aesthetic is one really we have to really work hard. But based on biomimicry, like crown shyness that you saw in the lobby, or in this case was interlocking. So all the X modules are in fact interlocked, like alluding the people and nature. In fact, we are all interlocking, right? It's not separate entity. So the aesthetic is, yes, was intent, but now aesthetic and the energy savings and the air quality improvement are not enough to attract. So now we are looking into biomass that is as expensive as gold to attract more people that have can a little bit, give better impression about this microalgae. Yeah.
you're going to
What's the sound? Apologize for my outburst before. Question for Hans. Did you not design to incorporate solar panels on the building? It seems to be a natural for that.
For sure. Actually, the design intent at the beginning was that whole south facade with the fins that has the copper colored panels was actually going to be all solar panels. The client didn't want to pay for it. That one I could not sneak by them.
Yes, I had a question for Monica. On your last chart, you had the lunar lighthouse. There was this large circular object that people were standing next to. Could you explain what that was? Is it a crashed UFO?
Oh, yeah, no, it was just like a core of the structure. So it was an airlock and like core facilities that you, because of the structure is vertical, the whole communication was vertical. So it was just like part of the airlock to get out. So it's not really like important part of the project in that sense. It was just the example of how astronauts may communicate between the levels.
I thought maybe it was a lens that was focusing light to, illuminate the entirety of a permanently shadowed crater or something like that.
No, but the idea was that like one of the commonly chosen sites for the future lunar missions is the rim of Shackleton crater, where it's peak of eternal light. So the sun is very, very low, but almost constantly there. So the idea of using the cellulose sheets is that they can work as light, like optical fibers, and the light can pass through them inside the structure. So that was the idea of like light circulating around the structure. Thank you.
Look, I think we have time for one or two more. Depending on it, yeah.
So we live in New York City, and a lot of office spaces obviously now kind of empty, and it's going with conversion of people working from home. And when you talk about what kind of materials you can use that are on site and sort of reimagine what some of the purposes, maybe it becomes a school, maybe it becomes housing, who knows. Are you thinking about any of these things that can be used within that sort of like all this like wallboard that's coming out? I'm just wondering how like the repurposing, the example you gave was like a freestanding structure, but here we are and we have like, gazillions of office square feet that are now have all this stuff in them. And rather than dragging it out, is there anything that can be done with it or?
Right. And as I think on that, it's a scale of the process. We're targeting rural disaster area. You've got plenty of room to bring in a big bunch of trucks and a bunch of sifters so you can organize, and magnets so you can separate all the different components. But I think that's certainly a direction that it would be good to move in. I don't know who's working in that area, but I think someone should be. In other words, how do we keep the building? How do we keep the building for a long time? We're people. We change generations. We change fashions. We're going to need to change the insides of those. And so, how do we do it circularly? And so I can imagine that it's you're trying to figure out how to scale it, that you can get it into a city without tearing out of, filling up a whole road. And maybe you do. Maybe you just shut down I don't live in New York City. I live out in the country. But I don't have any experience with it. But again, I feel like it's an opening we're going to have to explore. Yeah.
Yeah, I could talk to that a little bit too. We're developing process that actually use fungi to recycle the organic content that are in a lot of buildings. And I think the process she was talking about would look more at the inorganics of that, so that, you have your bricks and your concrete, that kind of stuff can be turned into rubble and used as aggregate in forming new concrete-like materials, cementitious materials. And then the organics can be, converted into dust, and that can be used to grow mycelium. Mycelium can then be used to bind that back together into new materials. And both of these processes could probably remediate a lot of the toxins that were in the built environment already. So I think there's a really bright future for exactly what you're talking about. Okay, well, thank you all, and thank you all.